For a moment, Maya did not move. The torn strip in her fist pressed against her palm, its edge sharp enough to leave a red line, and she let that small pain keep her face still. Vanessa waited for tears. The guests waited for an outburst. Even Grace stood frozen beside the kitchen island, one hand gripping the back of the stool. Her lips parted like she wanted to speak, but had forgotten how. Maya only lowered her eyes and picked up the rest of the paper from the rug, piece by piece, because she knew Vanessa would hate her calm more than any scream. "Throw that away," Vanessa said. Maya nodded, walked to the kitchen, and slipped 2 pieces into her apron pocket before dropping the rest into the trash. Her hands shook only after she turned on the faucet. The water ran over her fingers while the caterer beside her pretended not to look. "You okay?" the woman whispered. Maya dried her hands on a towel. "I still have work." By sunset, the house had changed back into its usual expensive silence. The guests left with gift bags. The florist's buckets were gone. Vanessa had retreated upstairs with a glass of wine, satisfied that the day had ended in obedience. Maya was supposed to clean the east guest room, mop the kitchen, and catch the 10:15 bus before the last transfer. If she missed it, the ride home would cost $32 in a rideshare, almost half of what she had set aside for rent. She was tying the trash bags when she heard a sound from the study. It was not crying exactly. It was the kind of breath someone makes when they are trying very hard not to cry. Maya stood in the hallway listening. Then she pushed the door open. Grace sat on the carpet in her graduation dress, one shoe off, her essay pages scattered around her like fallen leaves. Her chest lifted too fast. Her fingers clawed at the neckline of her dress. "I can't breathe," Grace whispered. Maya dropped the trash bag and crossed the room. "Look at me. Not the floor. Me." Grace tried, failed, and pressed both hands to her face. "She's going to read it tomorrow. Mom invited donors. She said if I embarrass her, I lose the summer program." Maya knelt in front of her. "Put your feet flat." "I can't." "Yes, you can. Press your heels down. Count the books on that shelf." "What?" "Count them." Grace blinked through tears. 1, 2, 3. Maya kept her voice low, steady, almost firm. She had learned that tone in hospital waiting rooms with her mother, in eviction offices, in classrooms where teachers looked at her uniform before they looked at her test score. When Grace's breathing slowed, Maya gathered the pages and read the first paragraph. It was polished, empty, full of words rich children used when they wanted adults to clap. "This isn't you," Maya said. Grace wiped her cheek. "You don't know me. I know this sentence is lying." Grace stared at her. The clock over the fireplace clicked past 10:15. Maya heard the bus she needed leaving without her. She sat on the floor anyway. For the next hour, she helped Grace rebuild the essay around the truth. Pressure, loneliness, the fear of becoming a perfect daughter with no voice of her own. Maya did not write it for her. She asked questions until Grace found her own words. When they finished, Grace looked at the page like it belonged to someone braver. "Why would you help me after what she did?" Maya folded the essay carefully. "Because you didn't tear the letter." The next morning, Vanessa found the printed essay on the study desk. In the final paragraph, Grace had written, "The person who taught me that dignity is not given by wealth was Maya Carter, who works in our home and studies harder than anyone I know." Vanessa's face went pale, then hard. By noon, Maya's weekly envelope was missing $200. By 2, the family email account she had used for school applications was locked. By 3, Vanessa stood in the laundry room doorway and said, "Since you have time to teach my daughter, you clearly don't need full pay." Maya looked down at the washer, where her notebook was hidden behind the detergent. Inside the notebook was the login page she could no longer access, and somewhere inside that locked account was the only message that could tell her whether her future had survived. That night, Maya sat on the back steps of the Whitmore mansion with her notebook balanced on her knees and her phone glowing in her hand. The laundry room smelled of bleach behind her. The kitchen lights were still on, turning the windows into mirrors, so she could see herself in pieces. The white collar of her uniform, the tired curve of her shoulders, the tight grip of her fingers around a phone that no longer recognized the password to her own future. She tried the email again. Access denied. She tried the recovery number. It belonged to the Whitmore landline, the one Vanessa controlled from the office. Maya closed her eyes, counted to 4, and opened them before the tears could become useful to anyone but her enemies. From inside the notebook, she pulled out the torn strip she had saved. Dean's medal candidate. The words looked impossible under the weak porch light, like they had been printed for a woman who lived somewhere cleaner, safer, freer. She pressed the paper flat against the page and taped it there with a strip of clear tape stolen from the wrapping drawer. Then she wrote the date beside it. Not because she knew what it meant yet, but because evidence needed a body, a time, a place. Across town, behind the glass walls of Spelman University's policy building, Dean Harold Bennett stood in his office with his jacket off and his sleeves rolled to the elbow. His desk was covered in folders, scholarship files, donor lists, and one printed essay with a yellow sticky note on top. Maya Carter, confirm attendance. He had read hundreds of applications that year. Some were polished until they had no fingerprints left. Maya's had been different. She wrote about invisible labor with the precision of someone who had folded sheets in houses where no one remembered her last name. She wrote about black women cleaning rooms they were never invited to sit in, about night classes taken after 12-hour shifts, about dignity not as a slogan but as a legal question. Dean Bennett touched the corner of her essay and turned to his assistant. Still no confirmation? No, sir, Lorraine said, holding a tablet. No reply to the email. No voicemail. The mailing address is the Whitmore residence. The dean looked up. He knew that name. Everyone in Atlanta philanthropy knew that name. Vanessa Whitmore sat on committees, smiled in photographs, donated just enough money to be called generous, and never missed a room where her name might be printed on a program. Call again tomorrow, he said. Lorraine hesitated. There's also a withdrawal form pending from the same email account. Bennett's hand stopped on the folder. From Maya, digitally signed, came in this afternoon. He read the timestamp, then the sentence typed in the form. I respectfully withdraw due to personal limitations and employment obligations. It was neat, cold, and nothing like the voice in Maya's essay. Do not process that, he said. Not until I speak to her directly. Back at the mansion, Maya heard footsteps and slid the notebook under her apron. Grace opened the back door in sweatpants. Her graduation makeup washed away, her eyes swollen from crying. She held a small plate wrapped in foil. You missed dinner, she said. Maya looked at the plate but did not take it. Your mother told me food was for staff who finish on time. Grace flinched. I'm sorry. You keep saying that quietly. Grace looked down. In her hand, beneath the foil, Maya noticed a corner of printed paper. Not food. Grace lifted it just enough for Maya to see a page from the study printer. At the top was Maya's name. Below it, a sentence she had never written. I respectfully withdraw. Maya felt the porch tilt under her. Grace whispered, I found it in the printer tray. I think my mom sent something. From upstairs, Vanessa's voice cut through the house, sharp and close. Grace? Who are you talking to? Grace shoved the paper toward Maya, panic flashing across her face. Maya folded it once and slipped it into her notebook beside the torn letter. For the first time that night, the pieces did not feel like trash. They felt like a trail. And somewhere in that trail was a question more dangerous than the scholarship itself. If Vanessa had already stolen Maya's answer, what else was she willing to steal before the dean found the truth? By 6 the next morning, Maya was standing at the bus stop with her notebook zipped inside a canvas tote and the copied withdrawal page pressed flat between 2 cereal boxes so it would not bend. She had not slept. Her uniform was still damp at the cuffs from hand-washing it in the sink, and over it she wore the only blazer she owned, black, faded at the elbows, with one button replaced by a safety pin. The first bus came smelling of diesel and old coffee. The second was crowded with nurses, janitors, students with earbuds, and office workers balancing paper cups against briefcases. Maya stood the whole ride, one hand on the pole, the other on the tote, feeling every stop like a question she had not answered yet. When she reached Spellman's campus, the iron gates and brick buildings looked nothing like the online photos she had studied at midnight. In the photos, the walkways had seemed open, waiting. In person, they felt like a world with rules she had not been taught. Young women crossed the grass in hoodies with university letters stitched across the front. A father took pictures of his daughter beside a statue. 2 donors in tailored suits stepped from a black SUV while a driver held the door. Maya looked down at her worn flats and kept walking. At the admissions building, the marble floor shone so clean she could see the edge of her skirt reflected under her feet. Behind the front desk, a receptionist with silver glasses looked up, then past her, as if searching for a mop bucket. "Deliveries go around back," the woman said. Maya placed both hands on the counter so they would not shake. "I'm not delivering anything. My name is Maya Carter. I need to speak to someone about my admission file." The receptionist's smile tightened. "Students usually make appointments." "I tried. My email was locked." "Then you'll need to recover your account online." Maya opened her tote and laid out the torn letter strip, the printed withdrawal page, her state ID, her community college transcript, and 3 recommendation letters sealed in plastic sleeves. She did not speak until everything was aligned. "Someone sent a withdrawal form using my name. I did not send it." The receptionist looked at the papers, and for the first time her face changed. "Not warmth. Procedure. Have a seat." Maya sat beneath a framed donor wall where the Whitmore name appeared in gold letters. Seeing it there made her stomach tighten. Money had followed her into the building before she even had a student ID. 20 minutes later, a woman in a navy suit opened the inner door. "Maya Carter?" She introduced herself as Angela Price from Student Affairs. Voice professional, eyes careful. Her office smelled like printer toner and peppermint. On the desk sat 2 computer monitors, a stack of folders, and a small sign that read, "Documentation protects everybody." "Tell me exactly what happened," Miss Price said. Maya did not cry. She started with the envelope. She described the living room, the guests, Vanessa's hands tearing the paper, the missing pay, the locked email, Grace finding the withdrawal printout. Miss Price typed as she listened. "Do you have proof the letter was destroyed?" Maya slid the tape strip across the desk. Miss Price read the words "Dean's Medal candidate" and lifted her eyes. "Do you understand what this means?" "Not completely. It means your file was not ordinary." She turned to the computer. "But I cannot reverse a withdrawal request based on a story, even a troubling one. I need identity verification, account logs, and confirmation from the scholarship office." Maya leaned forward. "Then tell me what to do." The first test came faster than she expected. Miss Price handed her a blank incident statement and said, "Write it now. Dates, times, names, exact words." "No exageración." Maya took the pen. Her hand ached before she reached the second page, but she kept writing. She named Vanessa. She named the guests only as witnesses. She wrote Grace's role carefully, refusing to make a scared girl sound guilty. When she finished, Miss Price read it in silence. "Most people use anger to fill gaps," she said. "You used sequence." Maya met her eyes. "I clean houses for people who change stories when they get scared. Sequence is how I survive." Miss Price printed a temporary campus pass and placed it on the desk. "The dean wants to meet you today, but understand something. The Whitmores are donors. If this becomes formal, it will not stay quiet." Maya looked through the glass wall at the students crossing the courtyard. Books. Against their chests, futures moving openly in daylight. She picked up the pass. "It was never quiet for me." As she stepped into the hallway, her phone buzzed. One message from an unknown number filled the screen. "Leave that school before you humiliate yourself." Maya stopped walking. At the far end of the corridor, beside the donor wall, Vanessa Whitmore's gold name caught the light. The message stayed on Maya's screen until the hallway lights dimmed for a scheduled energy cycle and her reflection appeared over the words. "Leave that school before you humiliate yourself." She did not delete it. She took a screenshot, wrote the time in her notebook, and saved the number under one name, Threat. Then she walked toward the dean's office with the temporary pass clipped to her blazer like it belonged there. Dean Bennett did not meet her behind a throne of mahogany. He met her in a conference room with a long table, a pitcher of water, and 3 folders already open. He was a tall black man in his early 60s, gray at the temples, with reading glasses low on his nose and the careful stillness of someone who had learned not to mistake silence for weakness. "Ms. Carter," he said, standing. "Thank you for coming." Maya noticed that he did not say he was sorry first. He offered her a chair, then waited for her to sit as if her presence was not a disruption but the reason the room existed. Ms. Price sat beside him with Maya's incident statement. "We are going to ask you questions," the dean said. "Not because we doubt your pain, but because truth must survive people with lawyers." Maya nodded. "I understand." He slid a printed paragraph across the table. "This is from your application essay. Read the marked section aloud." Maya looked down. The paragraph was hers, but seeing it in that room made it feel almost dangerous. She read slowly, each word steadying the next. "When a woman cleans a room, she learns who is allowed to be tired and who is punished for it. Policy begins where private cruelty is treated as normal." The room went quiet. Dean Bennett leaned back. "Why public policy?" Maya folded her hands under the table so no one would see her nails digging into her palms. "Because people keep calling private homes private when abuse happens inside them. Domestic workers lose papers, wages, references, sometimes housing, and everyone acts like it is a family matter. It is not. It is labor." Ms. Price stopped typing for a second. The dean's face did not change, but his pen lowered. "And if you are admitted, what will you do with the degree?" "Build legal clinics that workers can reach without asking their employers for permission." It was the first small victory. Not applause, not rescue. Just the look on Dean Bennett's face when he realized the woman in the faded blazer had not come asking to be saved. She had come carrying a blueprint. Before Maya left, Ms. Price handed her a secure university email login and a printed copy of her scholarship file. "This account is yours only. No employer address. No shared phone." Maya touched the paper carefully. On the top sheet, under her name, was the same phrase from the torn strip, "Dean's Medal Candidate." But now the words were not broken. They were whole. In the student lounge, Grace was waiting near a vending machine, hood pulled low, sunglasses hiding half her face. She looked out of place among the students, like a girl who had borrowed courage and was afraid someone would ask for it back. "My mom thinks I'm at a fitting," she said. Maya kept her distance. "You shouldn't be here if you're scared." Grace swallowed. "I am scared. That's why I came." She opened her backpack and pulled out an envelope of scraps. More pieces of the letter. "I took them from the trash before the housekeeper emptied it. I thought maybe paper could be fixed." Maya stared at the torn pieces spread across the table between them. The seal, the signature line, the scholarship paragraph, all jagged but present. The letter was no longer just proof that Vanessa had tried to destroy something. It was proof that someone raised inside that house had chosen, quietly and late, not to let the destruction finish. Maya took a roll of tape from her tote. Together, without many words, they began matching the pieces. Grace found corners. Maya found sentences. When the full letter finally lay crooked but readable under their hands, Grace whispered, "She kept it 11 days. The postmark is right there." Maya looked. April 3rd. Vanessa had torn it on April 14th. 11 days of silence dressed as authority. Maya photographed the postmark, then the restored letter. That was clue enough to prove delay, motive, control. Across town, Vanessa sat at her vanity while her assistant read from a tablet. The school confirmed Maya was on campus. Vanessa's lipstick paused before touching her mouth. "Call Lydia at the scholarship board," she said, "and find out who handles student conduct." "What should I say?" Vanessa smiled at her mirror, calm returning to her face. "Say I'm concerned about theft in my home, and that a young woman with access to my jewelry is about to embarrass the university." Vanessa did not accuse Maya in anger. She did it with concern, which made it more dangerous. By morning, her voice had traveled through polished offices and donor phone trees wrapped in the language of protection. She told Lydia at the scholarship board that she hated to interfere with a young woman's opportunity, but the university deserved to know there had been an incident. She told a student conduct coordinator that Maya had been under pressure, that poor girls sometimes became overwhelmed when doors opened too fast, that she had always tried to help the girl but had begun to notice missing things. She never sounded cruel. She sounded like a woman saving a respectable institution from embarrassment. At the mansion, Maya returned after campus because she still needed her final paycheck. She knew walking through those iron gates might be foolish, but rent was due Friday, and dignity did not pay a landlord on its own. She kept her phone recording inside her tote, not to trap anyone, but because sequence needed sound. The house was too clean. That was the first thing she noticed. The laundry baskets that usually sat near the mudroom were gone. The hallway table had been cleared. Even the silver tray by the stairs had been moved 3 inches to the left, covering the small black camera that faced the foyer. Vanessa stood in the dining room with 2 friends from the luncheon, her assistant and a private security guard in a navy blazer. On the table lay an open velvet box. Empty. Maya, Vanessa said softly, as if they were both grieving. I need you to be honest with me. Maya stopped at the edge of the rug. About what? Vanessa touched her own wrist, bare except for a pale line where the bracelet usually Saturday. My diamond bracelet is missing. The room became very still. One of Vanessa's friends lowered her eyes with practiced pity. The bracelet from the donor gala? My mother's bracelet, Vanessa said. The one I wore when Grace graduated. Maya looked at the velvet box, then at the security guard. I haven't touched your jewelry. I want to believe that. Vanessa's voice trembled just enough to sound generous. But you have been upset. You have been making accusations. And you had access to my bedroom, the laundry, my office. Maya felt the trap closing in pieces. Bedroom, laundry, office. 3 places where no camera would help her unless she asked for it before anyone erased the footage. She did not defend herself quickly. Quick defense made rich people call you emotional. Instead, she asked, when did you last see it? Vanessa blinked. Excuse me? The bracelet. Time and place. The security guard shifted. Vanessa's mouth tightened for half a second. Yesterday evening. On my vanity. Maya nodded once. Then I'd like the footage from the upstairs hall, the laundry entrance, and the foyer. Vanessa gave a sad little laugh. Listen to her. Already speaking like a lawyer. Maya turned to the guard. You have cameras. Please preserve them. The guard looked to Vanessa, not Maya. That answer told Maya everything. Vanessa stepped closer and lowered her voice. Open your bag. Maya did not move. Not without a witness who is not paid by you. Vanessa's face hardened. Then her assistant entered from the laundry room holding Maya's gray work jacket between 2 fingers. Something glittered from the pocket. The diamond bracelet slid out and struck the dining table with a sound so delicate it made the accusation feel elegant. One friend gasped. The other whispered, "Oh my God!" Maya stared at the bracelet, then at the jacket. She had left it hanging behind the dryer that morning. She had not worn it since dawn. Her mind did what panic could not. It started counting. She was on the bus at 6:12. Campus at 7:04. Student affairs at 8:31. Dean's office at 9:15. Lounge with Grace at 10:10. Every time had a place. Every place might have a receipt. Vanessa lifted the bracelet with a tissue. I tried to protect you, she said louder now for the room. But this is what happens when people reach for lives they are not prepared to live. Maya reached into her tote slowly, took out her notebook, and wrote the time, the witnesses, the jacket, the bracelet, the exact words. Her hand shook, but the letters stayed readable. You're taking notes? Vanessa asked. I'm preserving sequence. The security guard moved toward her. Maya stepped back, heart pounding, as her phone buzzed with a campus alert. Scholarship review placed on temporary hold pending conduct inquiry. For the first time, Vanessa's attack had crossed from the mansion into the university. And on the dining table, under chandelier light, the false proof glittered like it had always belonged there. Maya did not leave the mansion in handcuffs, and somehow that made the humiliation sharper. Vanessa was too careful for sirens in front of neighbors. She let the security guard escort Maya through the side door, past the trash bins and trimmed boxwoods, the same way deliveries left when guests were still inside. Maya's final paycheck came in a white envelope with nothing written on it. When she opened it at the bus stop, $200 more were missing. A note was tucked inside, deduction for damages and lost property. By the time she reached her apartment, the landlord had taped a late notice to her door. Her hands stayed steady until she got inside. Then she set the envelope, the notice, and her notebook on the kitchen table and stood there in the dark, because turning on the light would make the room look too honest. Her phone rang once. Campus conduct. Then again. Student affairs. Then Grace. Maya let the first two go to voicemail. She answered Grace. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Then Grace whispered, "I saw the alert."
Maya, I'm sorry.
Maya looked at the taped-together letter on her table. Sorry does not tell me where the bracelet came from. Grace's breath shook. There's a camera in my study. Maya went still. What camera? The little one Dad installed when Mom thought the tutors were stealing test prep books. She forgot about it because it doesn't connect to the main system. It saves to a memory card behind the bookshelf. The room seemed to narrow around Maya's heartbeat. The study. The same room where Grace had broken down. The same room where Maya had helped her rewrite the essay. The same side hallway beside the laundry room where her jacket had hung. A clue shifted in her mind. Vanessa had moved the silver tray in the foyer, hiding one camera. But she would not have thought about an old study camera she no longer controlled. Can you get the card? Maya asked. Grace's voice dropped lower. If she catches me, she'll send me to my aunt in Dallas. Then don't do it for me, Maya said, though every part of her wanted the opposite. Do it only if you are ready to tell the truth when people can hear you. The line went quiet. I am tired of being quiet, Grace said. 2 hours later, while Vanessa hosted a donor call downstairs, Grace climbed onto a chair in the study and pulled 3 law books from the shelf. Behind them was a small black camera, dusty, blinking red. Her fingers trembled so badly she nearly dropped the memory card. She hid it inside the lining of her graduation cap, the one Vanessa had ordered custom with pearls on the edge. At the university, Dean Bennett sat alone in his office listening to the voicemail Maya had finally left. Her voice was controlled, but not soft. She did not beg him to believe her. She listed times, places, witnesses, missing wages, the false bracelet, and the pending inquiry. Then she said, if this school honors evidence, tell me where to bring it. If it honors donors first, tell me now so I stop mistaking a gate for a door. The dean removed his glasses and covered his eyes. He had almost let procedure become another locked room. He had not accused her, but he had allowed her scholarship to be frozen before verifying the source of the accusation. That was still a failure. By midnight, Maya met Grace at a 24-hour copy shop between the mansion and campus. Fluorescent lights buzzed above them. A man printed flyers near the counter. A tired cashier ate chips from a paper bowl. Grace slid the memory card across the table like it was heavier than jewelry. Maya did not touch it at first. Once we copy this, you cannot pretend you didn't know. Grace nodded, tears already moving down her face. I know. They plugged the card into the shop computer. The footage loaded in gray-blue silence. Vanessa entered the study carrying Maya's gray jacket. She opened a velvet box. She looked toward the hall, then slipped the bracelet into the pocket with the calm hands of a woman setting a table. Grace covered her mouth. Maya watched without blinking. The lowest point of her life had finally grown teeth. Not rage, not revenge. Proof. She paid for 3 copies with the last cash in her wallet, saved one to a new drive, emailed one to her secure university account, and sealed the third in an envelope addressed to Dean Bennett. When Grace asked what happened next, Maya wrote one sentence across the envelope. Formal evidence submission. Then she looked at the girl who had finally chosen truth over comfort and said, "Now we stop asking them to believe me. We make them answer for what they did." By morning, the evidence was no longer just a video on a memory card. Maya turned it into a map. On the conference table in Dean Bennett's office, she laid out the torn acceptance letter, the April 3rd postmark, the withdrawal printout, screenshots of the threat, bus receipts, campus check-in records, the conduct hold notice, and 3 copies of the study camera footage. She did not speak first. She let the dates speak. Ms. Price connected the university logs to the withdrawal form. "Submitted from an IP address registered to the Whitmore residence," she said. Dean Bennett looked at the bracelet footage twice, then a third time without sound. "This clears the theft allegation," he said. Maya shook her head. "It does more than that. It proves the theft allegation was created after I came here." The room went still because that was the part. No one could soften. The lie had not been confusion. It had been strategy. By noon, the scholarship hold was removed. By 3, Dean Bennett called an emergency integrity review with legal counsel. By 6, the university graduation hall was filling with families, donors, faculty, and students in gowns. Vanessa arrived in white, Grace beside her in blue, both of them wearing pearls that looked heavy under the lights. Vanessa smiled for photographs near the donor wall until she saw Maya standing near the side aisle in a plain black dress. The restored letter held inside a thin frame. For 1 second, Vanessa's smile cracked. "What is she doing here?" she whispered. Grace did not answer. When the ceremony began, Vanessa sat in the second row with her chin lifted, still trusting the power of a room that had always welcomed her money. Then Dean Bennett stepped to the podium before the donor remarks. His voice carried cleanly through the microphones. "Before we honor achievement, we must correct an injustice." Vanessa stood halfway. "Dean Bennett, this is highly inappropriate." He looked at her, not unkindly. "You will have a chance to respond." The screen behind him lit up with the withdrawal form. Then the IP log. Then the postmarked envelope. Vanessa's face went pale under the chandeliers. "That proves nothing," she said. "She had access to my home." Maya stepped forward, calm enough that the silence followed her. "I had access to floors, laundry, and dishes. Not your keyboard at 2:13 p.m. while I was checked in at Student Affairs." Ms. Price read the campus record aloud. A murmur moved through the hall. Vanessa reached for her purse. "This is defamation." Dean Bennett nodded to the technician. The study footage appeared. Vanessa entered the frame with Maya's gray jacket. The velvet box opened. The bracelet slipped into the pocket. No one breathed loudly enough to cover it. Grace bent her head and began to cry. Vanessa stared at the screen as if her own hands had betrayed her. "That video was taken in my private home," she said. But the sentence collapsed before it could become a defense. Dean Bennett lifted the framed letter. Maya Carter was not a thief. She was not withdrawn. She was not unqualified. She was admitted with a full merit scholarship and selected as a Dean's Medal candidate before anyone in this room knew her name. He turned toward Maya. "And tonight, before any donor speaks, this university will honor the student whose future someone tried to destroy." The applause did not begin all at once. It started somewhere in the back. One pair of hands, then another, then a wave rising through the hall. Maya looked at the torn letter inside the frame, the broken seams shining under clear tape. The truth was no longer hidden in her notebook, no longer trapped in Grace's pocket, no longer waiting behind a password Vanessa controlled. It was on the screen, in the microphones, in the faces turned toward the woman who had called cruelty discipline. And once Dean Bennett said her name into that room, there was no hand rich enough to tear it back. The applause carried Maya to the stage, but it did not make her rush. She walked slowly, one step at a time, past the rows of people who had just watched the lie break open. Vanessa remained standing beside her chair, one hand gripping her purse, her face fixed in that frozen place between pride and panic. Grace stood too, but not behind her mother this time. She stepped into the aisle and said clearly, "I knew part of it, and I stayed quiet too long."
I'm sorry, Maya.
Maya looked at her, Not cruelly, not softly. Then tell the truth when it costs you comfort. Grace nodded, crying without covering her face. Dean Bennett placed the medal in Maya's hands, not around her neck, giving her the choice. Maya looked at the gold disc, then at the framed letter resting on the podium, its torn lines still visible under the tape. She lifted the microphone. "I used to think the worst thing someone could do was tear up a letter," she said. "But the worst thing is teaching people that their future belongs to whoever pays them." No one moved. Vanessa tried to leave, but two university officials stopped her near the aisle. By the end of that week, her donor seat was removed, the false conduct complaint was withdrawn, and the university filed a formal report over the forged withdrawal and staged theft accusation. The security guard admitted he had been told not to preserve footage. Vanessa's assistant turned over call records. Even the guests from the luncheon were asked to give statements about the day the letter was destroyed. Nobody who watched and smiled got to pretend they had seen nothing. Maya did not accept Vanessa's private settlement offer. She signed no silence agreement. She did accept every dollar of unpaid wages after a labor attorney helped her file the claim, and she made sure the check came with a written admission of wage deductions. When Grace came to apologize again, this time with copies of her own statement, Maya did not hug her. She read the pages first. Then she said, "This is a start." Months later, a small office opened beside the campus legal clinic with a plain sign on the door, the Torn Letter Fund. Under it, in smaller letters, it read, "Emergency support for domestic workers pursuing education." The first applicants were women who arrived after cleaning shifts, still smelling of lemon soap and bus exhaust, carrying pay stubs, GED forms, childcare schedules, and dreams folded so many times they barely looked like dreams anymore. Maya sat with them at a wooden table. No marble floor, no chandelier, no one asking whether they belonged. On the wall behind her desk hung the framed acceptance letter. Every ripped seam visible. People sometimes asked why she did not replace it with a clean copy. Maya would touch the frame and smile a little. Because this one tells the truth. And in the evening, when the last worker left with a bus card, a legal referral, and a school application she did not have to hide from anyone, Maya turned off the office light and saw her reflection in the glass. No tray in her hands, no apology in her posture, only the torn letter behind her. No longer proof of what someone had destroyed, but proof of what they failed to stop.